It's happy hour from Central City, New Orleans. We're at Casa Borrega on Aretha Castle Haley Boulevard at Felicity, where you can come and have a drink because it's a bar. You can come and hear live music because it's a music venue, and you can have something awesome to eat because it's also a restaurant. Tell you more about Casa Borrega as we go. In the meantime, you can follow them on Twitter and check them out on Facebook while you're listening to us. In the next 60 minutes, you're going to meet an indeterminate number of people who live in New Orleans, probably 2, maybe 3, or even 4. You're probably going to hear some live music as well if we can figure that out. At the end of the show, you might conclude New Orleans is a great city where people love to talk, have fun, and enjoy great music, but you probably know that already. So let's get right on with doing nothing but enjoying the next 60 minutes of happy hour together. My 2 guests sitting around the table. Why can 2 people sit around anything? Technically, I guess not. Sitting somewhere at a table. Here at Casa Borrega today are, in no particular order, Dr. Mignonne Mary, who's a medical doctor and founder of the Remedy Room. Hi, Mignonne.
Hi.
Come on, and you have to. We bought these really cheapo mics, so you have to really talk right into them. The Remedy Room is a new medical clinic on St. Charles Avenue, and I'm going to tell you exactly where it is because you're going to want to know this. It's on the uptown riverside of Lee Circle. And the reason I'm telling you so specifically is because the Remedy Room specializes in the medical treatment of an affliction that affects a large number of New Orleanians, the hangover.
Yes.
Can you believe this, Jim? Are you listening? Pay attention.
I am.
The medical mission of the Remedy Room is to, and I quote, rehydrate and restore wellness with IV fluids, vitamins, and minerals in a convenient and comfortable setting. You get to feel like yourself again quickly and easily under medical supervision.
That's right.
Now, Mignonne, are you Catholic?
I am.
You are. You could easily become a saint.
We'll try to save as many people as we can.
Has the Vatican got in touch with you?
No one's called yet.
Because you've got to be on the path to sainthood if you're going to cure the hangover, right? Don't you think?
We're going to do our best to try to help people out.
Well, you've even got a voice that you sound like you've been drinking all day. Have you?
Not at all.
God, what a great voice. Doesn't this, Jim?
She sounds terrific.
Really? Is this your natural speaking voice, or do you smoke a lot of cigarettes?
God-given. This is the one I got.
Wow, this is going to be a great hour. Sitting across from me is yet another doctor. I have a whole doctor show today. This is kind of like a real talk show, like WWL or something.
We're serious here.
Dr. Jim Fitzmaurice has a PhD, not a medical doctor, right?
No, not at all.
From the University of Washington School of Drama, an education which he has put to good use in various guises, notably as the artistic director of the New Orleans Shakespeare Festival and as a playwright. The winner of 4 Big Easy Awards, Jim's plays deal mostly with New Orleans themes, including, well, these titles say it all. Right? This is like the history of New Orleans. Listen to this. The House of Plunder, With Malice Towards All, Urban Education Smackdown, now that's got to be good, and his collaboration with Carl Walker, The Last Madam. Jim's latest play is called A Truckload of Ink, which tackles the changing landscape of a newspaper and a city.
We've written a play about a newspaper that's going from 7 days a week to 4. I know, where do I get my ideas?
I'm not sure. Where
do I get my ideas? And we're talking about hangovers and closing newspapers. This is definitely a New Orleans show, absolutely.
And we're hoping that Dave Shaw from The Revivalists is going to show up at some point, in which case I'll do a very fancy, flowery introduction of him. But hopefully he'll be here. Andrew Duhon, who normally sits across here and plays the guitar and hangs out with us, is away on tour in Europe. He'll be back next week. So if you're listening to the show and you're keeping track, why can you? Is this sun in your eyes as well?
No, not me.
Not me at all.
Okay.
I feel
All right, it's just me. I'm going to have to wear a hat. So where am I going to start? Dr. Mary, shall I start with you?
I'm ready.
Okay. So you went to medical school. Where did you go to medical school?
LSU,
At
downtown.
LSU. And here in Baton
New
Rouge.
Orleans.
Here.
New Orleans,
LSU,
yeah.
the medical school was strangely enough in New Orleans.
It is.
And then what happened to you after that?
And then I practiced at our family's clinic. I come from a family of physicians. I have an older brother and a father with the same name, Charles Mary, who are internists. My dad is...
Your name is not Charles Mary, by the way.
My name's Mignonne.
Right.
I get confused.
So when you say by the same name, you mean both your brother and your
last
father?
name. Their name, they're Charles Jr., Charles the
Right.
Third.
Okay.
There's actually a fourth as well.
Is Charles the Fourth?
Yeah, we'll have
It's
to
like
see
the
what
royal
happens.
family.
Yeah.
And is he a doctor? Are they all doctors?
He's not. He has a phenomenal business. You should have him come on. He has a company called Debbie Does Dobash. It's a cupcake.
Debbie Does Dobash.
Yes, delicious. It's Dobash cupcakes.
They make Dobash cupcakes?
Yes, sir. And they're delicious.
That's like the most amazing thing I've ever heard
and
in my
handmade.
life.
They're yeah. But so anyway, I worked at the Mary Clinic, and at this clinic we do phenomenal things. My father has sort of been a pioneer in using high-dose vitamin C and using IV therapy in the clinic setting, and then of course in the hospital setting for over 30 years. And our clinic has progressed to be very alternative. We have a lot of cancer patients. I'm not sure if everyone knows about how great vitamin C is, but there's not a lot of research done with vitamins
I thought it was good if you had a cold. I didn't realize it would also cure cancer.
Well, they're finding now that there's phase 1 and 2 trials that are out showing that it's helping not only just as an antioxidant. Everybody knows vitamin C is an antioxidant, but as higher doses that you can't get by mouth that you take IV, it becomes a pro-oxidant, which means it's helping to kill those cancer cells but protect your own cells and boost your own immunity.
Okay, so the antioxidant turns into a pro-oxidant.
Yes, so it's helping.
That's what, and because it's oxidization, or is it the word that causes the cells to be cancerous?
So it's helping with all of, what people just always think, oh, it's just it's an antioxidant, but at the higher doses that you can get IV, which you cannot take by mouth, and on most of the other studies in the past, they didn't really go high enough. The doses were never high enough, so they kind of refuted and said, oh, it doesn't do anything. Well, that's not true. My dad is alive because he cured his colon cancer with vitamin C.
He cured his own colon cancer?
Yep.
Wow.
And we have a lot of patients who have cancer who come into the clinic. So to bring the story back to the remedy room, we had a lot of patients who originally, when they came for viral illnesses, of course for hangover and dehydration and things like that. And I wanted to bring it back down to just the patient who wasn't so severely sick to be able to come in.
People would go to the Marie Clinic with a hangover.
Sure. I mean,
Really?
that's not something we advertised, but we had our own private patients who would be sick and come and say, I need help, and then we would treat them.
So they just knew because
they were already our private patients, sure.
And they just happened to go out on a Friday night and
Sure.
get plastered as hell and then call up Dr. Mary on a Saturday and say, can you hook me up on the IV?
And so mononucleosis, I mean, you think of it, sinus infection,
okay, hang
terrible
on. Do
chest
you know what
cold.
mononucleosis is, Jim?
That's the kissing virus that
mono.
kids get. Mono.
Oh, that's called
Sorry,
mono. Okay,
mono.
yeah. No, that's okay. I didn't realize it was called mononucleosis. It
Yes.
sounds a lot more impressive.
Sorry.
That's you have to
So-
apologize for being a doctor.
It's
So you can cure that with?
well, you can help it tremendously. I mean, depends on where you pick it up.
I thought that was incurable or something.
No, it's a virus, but you can help the person to recover faster because you're helping boost their own immune system. The body always wants to heal. It's just we keep getting in the way.
There's like a point of no return for mononucleosis, right? Though, I mean, the thing is, if you get to it soon enough, you can actually take care of it. The people that actually pass away from it are the ones who don't realize they have it until it's too
right.
late.
They're probably dehydrated, and then they may have some other sequelae, like their organs may fail afterwards from whatever the other reasons may be, dehydration, etc.
Okay, so in case anyone's listening to this and they don't want to listen to it anymore,
Right.
they've had enough and they've got to go and do something. We have to get to the point here.
The hangovers are the big push.
Hangover.
Everybody wants to hear about hangovers. So
I want to know how, because if you've cured hangovers, I'm serious, you're going to be a saint, right? Because who doesn't?
Well, so here
Want a
it's
cure
been
for
going on in the medical community for ages, right? Most physicians.
What, drinking?
No, not just drinking, but rehydrating, knowing that we could instantly rehydrate you with fluids, okay? And we would give you what's called a banana bag. If you came into the ER and you were drunk, a lot of times in the past we would give you what they call a banana bag because the B vitamins turn the bag of fluids yellow. And we're replenishing those vitamins to make sure that nothing else more dramatic or worse happens to you from neurologic deficit.
This would be if I went into the ER and I happen to be drunk.
Right. So now because of costs and things such, they don't give you the IV fluids. They tell you to hydrate by mouth. But of course, it's much quicker to do it IV. All right. So
I mean, that's what a hangover is, right? I mean, it's a giant nutrient strip, right?
It's a drain, so you lose so much fluid. It's such a diuresis when you're drinking, and then you're losing a lot of the good electrolytes. And then there's also sort of a toxic buildup of all the breakdown product of the bad alcohol that I forgot the owner who was discussing.
Hugo was saying that if you drink expensive booze, you're not going to get it. Is that true?
That's true. Well, the darker the liquor and the heavier the alcohol, it's not clear and distilled and all these new techniques. Yes, it develops a lot of byproduct and the toxins make you feel sick.
So if you drink shitty alcohol, you're going to feel worse than if you drink good alcohol. Is that true?
I think anybody would be able to testify.
Everyone knows that.
For sure. So
I'm
we're
just asking
hydrate you. Medically, yes.
Okay.
I think that's the way to go. Stick to the clearer drinks.
Okay.
And, of course, hydrate in between your drinks. So
of course, that's the worst part.
That's
Who does
the hard
that?
part,
Yeah.
right?
Who's going to have a water spacer?
So we're available to give you the hydration. Most people don't want to stop at the ER after they've had a hangover. They're not sick enough to go to the ER, but they are sick enough to miss a day. So what we're creating here is a place where you can come if you just don't have the time, right?
Okay, so let's go through this. Okay, you're listening to this and you have to be in New Orleans to do this, right? You can't do this on the internet. Sorry. So you have to you go down to this. It's just by Lee Circle, just above Lee Circle. I mean, I've driven past it. I'm like,
yes,
this is so awesome because it's so handy. It's right on the streetcar route.
Convenient,
You don't
yes.
even have. You can still be sort of drunk enough to drive. You can get off the streetcar.
Well, you can't be drunk because you have to be able to consent. It is a medical procedure.
You have to be able to sign a form that says,
Sure.
I agree to
I'm not
let you-
drunk. I am sober enough to receive this
"Oh,
treatment.
I could sign that drunk or sober, no problem." Okay, so you go in there, and what happens? And you say, you just feel like shit. You wake up in the morning, you say, "I feel like crap. I shouldn't. I wish I'd never did that." What is this? Like an electronic cigarette? Nice.
You like it?
Yeah, I love it. What's in that? That's
It's,
the oil stuff.
Well, the way it works, when I've been told about electronic cigarettes, is that it's a battery, and then you attach a cartridge, and inside the cartridge is liquid nicotine, and that the battery then vaporizes the liquid nicotine and goes into your lungs. There's now concern.
That's got to be worse for you than tobacco.
Well, actually, it's not.
No.
It's gotta
it
be.
really isn't.
Doctor, tell me.
No, I think
you
it's
agree with-
okay. I'm
No.
agreeing
Do
with
you?
the e-cigarettes. Yeah.
Wow.
They've actually discovered, though, that there are a couple of products, they're steering people away from a couple of the foreign products because some of the companies overseas are slipping things into them to kind of increase the intake. So you have to be really careful what you go for. But I haven't had I used to be a 2-pack-a-day smoker.
No, they say that the dopamine, the happy hormone that you get
Yeah.
from this e-cigarette,
You can say dopamine on the air, it's okay.
dopaminergic surge, the surge that makes you feel good after you smoke a cigarette, is equal. So if you're trying to quit, it's a great idea, and I highly recommend it.
Did you see the study
Okay,
about
doctor recommended.
about the ADHD? They had a trial where they had a number of kids in high schools who were smokers who had terrible ADHD and were taking medication for it, and they took them off. They had the parents sign the waiver, took them off the medication and tell them to quit smoking, but they gave them the patch, and their grades in the classroom, because they could wear the patch inside the classroom, actually increased.
Are we talking about high school students?
High school
students who are hooked on smoking cigarettes?
No, getting off the stimulants from the ADD meds and then putting them on nicotine.
Nicotine.
I didn't see it, but I'd love to
Yeah,
look
I mean,
at
it's
it.
just it's
I misunderstood that. So the kids who are hooked on this, what is it called?
Well, the medicines that we use for
what's it called?
ADD meds are amphetamines, so they're very addictive.
What's the name of the famous one?
Ritalin,
Ritalin.
Adderall, Concerta.
Concerta is not as hard because a lot of them are time release now, so they kind of drip into you. It's one of those things that if you actually have ADHD, it makes you feel normal. It's kind of like a painkiller if you have actual pain. The problem is that people get diagnosed with ADHD at the drop of a hat, and they just pump them full of speed.
Right.
If you actually have the condition, you go to kind of a normal levelized feeling. But for a lot of people, what we're giving them is we're giving them a future addiction. So the idea is you go
Right.
back to dopamine. The idea is to release dopamine because that's what the ADHD, that's why they used to call it hyperactivity. The person wasn't hyperactive. They actually were sluggish, and they were attempting to kind of shake themselves out of that sluggishness.
So as a PhD doctor of drama, how do you know all this?
Well, you take a lot of classes. I
He
mean,
deals with a lot of young adults too.
I
I'm
mean,
sure.
yeah, and
Is this from teaching that you've learned all this?
From teaching and a lot of reading up on it. I mean, a lot of that makes a big difference.
Why are you reading up on it?
I probably have it. I mean, and the thing is that ADHD is also, it's not always a bad thing. I mean, it's also, we know that people who have it, when they get focused and locked in on something and they figure out what gives them their charge in a healthy way, they really become very dedicated to that sort of thing too. That often happens.
Well, you're sitting by yourself in a room writing most of the day, I assume, right?
Yes, that's exactly it. That's
and-
one of the first places I found out I actually could make myself feel normal, was just sitting down and writing. Yeah.
And what did you feel like before?
Like I really didn't care. I mean, the thing is that in my show Urban Education Smackdown, one of the things I worked in a public school for about a year and a half, and I worked as an assistant dean of students essentially, and also an interventionist and working with at-risk kids. And one of the things that you see when somebody actually has the condition as opposed to the overdiagnosis of ADHD is a thing that I call the drift, where the person just simply seems to leave. I guess the way to kind of distinguish the condition is a lot of people fidget, a lot of people drink too much caffeine and sit in dark rooms and play video games. Usually the people who have ADHD don't want to feel that way. That's the kind of separate thing. It's the fact that imagine wanting to focus, wanting to get a task done, desperately trying to get it done, and you still can't make yourself do it. There's a point where the person doesn't want to feel that way. It isn't like I don't want to do it. It's like I want to do this and I can't.
Right.
Just keep getting distracted.
And it becomes about but you would literally watch students while talking directly to them drift away from you. They would literally move their eyes from you and never, ever, ever have a TV to your back when you're talking to somebody with ADHD because you just watch them drift straight towards the image, and then the old joke is knock knock.
Who's there?
ADHD.
ADHD.
Ooh,
who?
look, a pretty girl. And that's how it works. So it was pretty.
So when you say you're an interventionist, I see you threw that we gloss over that very quickly. What does that mean?
What you'll see in a lot of public schools is you'll have special education or kids with special needs, and sometimes you'll have kids with special needs in the opposite direction. I won't use the filthy term I use, but there are two
You can
kinds.
say it. It's okay because it's not on the real radio.
Oh, okay. I call them what the fuck are you doing here's positives, and what the fuck are you doing here negatives. And the what the fuck are you doing here positives are these kind of extraordinary beings that walk into a classroom and no teacher or parent could ever take credit for them, and the kid was simply born to
Smart.
be brilliant.
Right.
I mean, like, basically you realize that if you give them the right sunlight and the right soil, they are going to essentially figure out a way to get a parachute that lands on the moon after the rocket ship detaches and all that.
How many of these in a classroom?
Oh, no, they're usually like one in a class. I mean, not just
But
in a
there's
class.
one every year.
But
like-
there's usually one lurking out there. And then there are the what the fuck are you doing here negatives, the what the fuck are you doing here neutrons, which are, somebody grew this something really dark and not very happy in a petri dish. I mean, but they also are the kind of kids who are angry, enraged, and, they get into a classroom, they can be very, very destructive. And so, one of the things that interventionists do, in a lot of ways is find the truly special students and figure out ways to kind of challenge them and lift their game. And for the ones who are having difficulty is to kind of intervene. And you'll see this. I mean, they have a thing called inclusion, where the students who are troubled or having problems are actually allowed to be in the classrooms, but they have an individual teacher or an interventionist or inclusionist who sits with them and kind of walks them through the process.
And who's paying for that?
We all are.
So that's part of their education system.
That's part of the
It's
public school
included
system.
I
in
never
all
knew
of them, or just
In a lot,
certain?
I know a lot of schools have it. The idea is because we think that the short bus, the trailer in the back, the special room, it stigmatizes students. And the problem you run into is when you have an inclusion of a student and they start doing one inclusionist for 3 or 4 students. Each one of those kids needs somebody individual if they're going to exist in a room of 20 and 30 people, because what it allows is for the teacher to teach the other 19. The teacher isn't having to manage one disruptive student. And part of the game is figuring out whether a student is disruptive because they've been raised poorly, because they're engaged in a power play in the classroom, or because they have problems. ADHD, let's go with ADHD for a second. The student can't pay attention. They become aware of the fact that they're falling behind. They can't do anything to improve the fact that they're falling behind. They get angry. Their anger turns to depression. Now you've got depression layered on top of ADHD, and now they're angry at everybody in the classroom, particularly those who are doing well, and it begins to kind of accumulate. If you don't catch this stuff early enough, and then somebody steps in, and instead of, helping them, they smack them full of Ritalin,
Right.
Concerta, Adderall.
And they don't address the core.
They don't address the core problem. And the fact of the matter is that in a lot of behavioral things, you can actually manage it. There's a big kind of line that says you really shouldn't even give kids medication until they begin to really get to their teen years, because you don't know what problem you're solving. The misdiagnosis of people who have been given depression medications who actually suffer from ADHD or something more solvable is kind of stunning, because nobody catches it happening.
Well, I also have a problem with just giving the medicine without addressing the other core problems of diet and environment. I mean, sugar, you know how much sugar we give our kids all day long? We're zacking them up on all kinds of stuff, and then
How-
they expect
is
them to sit
Well,
still.
that's exactly it. I mean, the fact of the matter is, too, a lot of these kids will come home and the parents will withhold the medication until they get home, because the medication, if and especially they have ADHD, the speed does.
Curbs their appetite. They don't eat.
It really kind of drives it down. The problem is, rather than taking it in the morning when it should be taken, they go through a whole day disruptive, they come home disruptive, the parent gives them the medication at night, and the kid is then up all night and comes in with a sleeping disorder, and it just begins to mount and mount. and
Sounds
mount.
like a mess.
It
Wow,
is a mess.
this is totally fucked up.
It is a
So
mess.
this is going on. You're saying that one of the things you said was it's overdiagnosed, right? That there's
Well, there's
too
no
many
blood
people.
test for ADD. You know that. This is a questionnaire. This is parents and teachers suggesting that the child has problems, and then they'll interview the child. But there's not some specific test we draw or do.
Yeah, and it's not rigorous enough, because it becomes it becomes almost like Soma, in Brave New World. Oh, well, here's
Yes.
a pill,
Yes.
But
chill out.
somebody discovered ADHD and ADD just recently. I mean, in the last 20 years or something.
Well, I have a
Before
theory, a
that,
really
there-
kind of screwed up theory. I think that the inclusion of sugar into our diet and the decrease in smoking in the country have actually seen the rise of ADHD. Because if you think about
Smoke more.
it, 40 or 50 years ago, half the country was smoking. Believe me, I'm not encouraging people to smoke. Don't get me wrong.
E-cigarettes. Get them all e-cigarettes
Yeah,
and patches.
but I mean, what I'm talking about is the fact that we don't think about this, but 60 years ago, you go to like a Denny's and the whole place would be a smoke bomb. You could go into offices or City Hall and there'd be smoke everywhere. And the fact is, have you noticed that obesity and ADHD have had this amazing rise in the last 40 years?
Yeah, but there's so many factors to that. Think about when a
Right.
child is born, even just right when they're born, the lights, the stimulation, the white noise. I mean, things have changed tremendously. So it's hard to pin it down to say it's just one thing.
Oh no, I know it. But the other thing is, have you seen that what is the psychiatrist book called? The diagnostic book. What is it?
The DSM-4.
The DSM. They had a
5.
large debate about removing narcissism from one of the conditions, because we live in such a tweeting, Facebooking, Anthony Weiner, Carlos Danger world.
We all have to be regarded as narcissists.
I mean, basically, if you look at the symptoms of narcissism, basically you've described everybody under 30.
Well, Facebook is having some sort of incredibly bizarre effect on the society. I don't know if we even know what that is yet, but it's certainly this bizarre world that we're all creating about ourselves, which isn't our real life.
Have you ever heard the Facebook term vague booking?
Vague booking.
Where you post something that's just really kind of borderline cryptic, and you'll say, like, having a small day, some people just don't care about me, and in the attempt to get like 80 people to press the like button and say, we love you, we care about you, and it's in a lot of ways.
Does it work?
You should try it.
But does it make you feel better if you do it? Maybe that's...
I don't do that.
Maybe it's therapeutic. But you're talking about
just
kids.
People playing games. It's not real. They're just seeing what kind of effect.
Probably
catfishing
catfishing people,
Okay, so I don't know how we got onto this whole thing about ADHD. Sugar.
I don't know. We were talking about drinking. And
okay, let's go back to drinking for a minute then. Okay, so I want...
And less drinking, too. People don't drink as much now. We don't, except in New
Not
Orleans,
in this
of course.
city.
But
Yeah,
in this
I
city,
think we've
agree
got
with that.
everybody covered.
But I think the rise of ADHD might also be because people aren't just chilling out and having a cocktail at the end of the day, except in New Orleans.
Yeah, they're chilling out and having a cocktail at the end of the day right now everywhere, actually, including us.
Yeah.
So, Mignonne, I get off the streetcar, I go in there, I sign the consent form, and I say, I'm hungover as all hell, I feel like shit, I'll do anything. What happens to me then?
You're going to see me and my staff, or I have nurses, and I'm the physician. We're going to do a history and physical on you. It'll be directed to what
What do you mean by physical? What does that mean?
I'm going to make sure they don't have any signs or symptoms that would preclude you from getting fluids, and make sure your lungs are clear.
What are the
sure you don't have
questions?
any heart
I'm already
disease.
feeling sick, and I've got a terrible headache. I don't want to be having a consultation.
We just make sure you don't have any abnormal labs. You have normal kidney function.
How do you
haven't
figure that
had
out?
heart failure. You haven't
just
had a
ask,
heart attack.
This is a questionnaire.
This is a questionnaire.
Could you fill it out for me? If I give you the answer, like
yes, I will fill it for you. We have an electronic
okay.
medical record. It's a push button. It's very easy.
All right.
But if you can't do it, we will do it for you.
Can I be wearing sunglasses at this point?
Most people keep them on until I have to ask them to take them off to examine them.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have photophobia. Their head hurts. They don't want the light.
Photophobia.
That's
a good name.
Being bothered by the light. But they, and then once you're screened and we make sure that there's no contraindications, and we'll start an IV.
What does that mean? Now I have to sit down
you have to sit down. You'll find a comfortable chair. I have lounge chairs like chaises, and I have
Where
couch.
am I? I'm in a doctor's office, or
you're in my clinic, which is set up. I wish I could show you a picture. Well, you'll just have to come by.
Yeah.
But I have
it's
I have a few couches. It's very comfortable. It's almost like a spa. I have relaxing shades where you can lay down. I have a massage chair. I have 2 or 3 chairs and the couch.
And are there other people in the room with me, other drunks?
It just depends on when you come.
Yeah, but it's not just they're not private rooms.
You're not alone. I do have some private. I've quadrilled you off in my. I call them cabanas, but someone told me they look like a hospital bay, and I said no, they're cabanas.
So I can say I don't want.
Beach.
So I can say I don't want anyone to see me in this condition because I'm very sensitive about my appearance.
So if you don't want anybody to see you,
so I can't have a private room.
We'll block
if I'm
you off.
famous or sensitive to be,
Yes, we
or I
can
look
sneak
like
you
crap.
in the back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Okay.
I'll hand you a bag in case you think you can't make it to the bathroom if you are that sick. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And then, no, not everyone gets a bag, but if you need it, and then we'll start the IV. And I can tell you honestly that within 10 to 20 minutes, people are already telling me they feel better. They come in, and I've described it this way numerous times. They look so disheveled. They come in almost closed in, and it's like a flowering. They open up, their eyes get they're less injected, they're less red. Their hair somehow, some of them, they fix their hair again. And
yes, that's the first thing that you do is your hair is just, you can't even be bothered doing that.
It's amazing. It's like those shows where the flower is, you see it in fast forward, fast speeded time.
I was just going to ask that. Do you have a camera on me at this point?
No.
I can have a video of myself. You should do that.
If you agree to doing it, I would love to see you from start to finish.
That would be a great thing to do. You could do that.
Website.
I'm not thinking about me personally, but for the patient. You know how you do bungee jumping or skydiving and they do a video. You can take the video home for $19.95 or something.
I would love for someone to come in and offer to let me do that, to show how amazing the recovery is. It's beautiful. So then they walk out, and a lot of times they'll shake my hand and say, hey, it's nice to meet you, because they felt so horrible and couldn't really talk. But just their movements, they're real quiet, and
Right.
then they start talking. The eyes brighten up. I've had people tell me, "Oh my gosh, I can see now. I can see all across the room now. I couldn't see before."
And do you have like a hamburger in there or anything?
I don't have a hamburger, but I have drinks, and I encourage them to drink liquids while they're
Right.
getting the IV as well.
So when you say IV, I mean,
Isn't a hamburger the best after a hangover?
that's what I mean. I feel like
It's
you
like the
need a
best.
hamburger.
It is the
They
best.
have all kinds of regimens out there that they say this is the best, this is the best. Salty food, I think, is definitely a winner. You want to try to hydrate.
Greasy hamburger seems to
I don't know
be
about the greasy
that's
part.
been that's been the hangover cure. That or carrot juice, by the way. Does carrot juice work?
I think anything you can tolerate and stomach. The mouth is always best, so I'm not trying to say that our way is the only way, but by hydrating both ways, you're going to get the most rapid response.
So how long does the whole thing take before I walk out of there and I'm like, thank you, I can't believe it.
45 minutes to an hour. If you need a second liter of fluids, if
That's
you're
it.
really dehydrated, it could be
45
about
minutes
an
to
hour
an
and a
hour.
half.
But so average, it's 45 minutes to an hour.
You've had people come in and get an hour and a half treatment?
Well, they've had to have a second
Keith
bag.
Richard.
They were vomiting, and they had to have another bag.
The pros from
Yes.
Dover. My
So-
God.
So
Usually most people only stay for about an hour. Most people's attention span, back to that ADD, is
What?
really...
What were we talking about?
what am I doing? I'm just sitting there. So the first
Remind
20
me.
the first 20 minutes I'm sitting there, I'm just like, thank God I'm not going to die.
Well, yeah.
And
it
then
takes
what do
a
I
little
do? Then I
bit
have to
for the
sit there-
medicine. Then you're sitting there, and then you're feeling better, and now
I
you're
can-
talking to me, and now you're chatting with my staff and the people
Oh,
around
okay.
you. We've had, and it's not just for drinking, right? So that's what the big point that
It's
I want.
not just for drinking.
It's not just for drinking. It's
Okay.
for rehydrating post flu. You
It's
know, I
like
had
beer.
people.
It's not just for breakfast anymore. You know?
I had a lot of GI illness that was passing around the city where the
Uh-huh.
people needed to replenish their fluids, and I was chasing tails. People who have chronic illnesses, chronic fatigue, they come and get IVs. People with sinus infections. So it's not just for alcohol, and
Right.
that's the
But
big
phone-
point that I want to make.
The phone number is like 855 hangover.
So
or
I'm
something.
glad you said that, because
Right.
it can be considered no hangover or New Orleans hangover.
Oh, it's
and
855 no
NO,
hangover.
no hangover.
hangover.
And so
Ah.
why did I do that? It's catchy. It caught your eye, and you
I
remembered it.
Yeah, 855. Is it 855?
It's 855.
855 no hangover. And I don't even have notes in front of me, do I?
So
Jim, you can attest to that.
No hangover.
855 no hangover.
Right.
855 no hangover.
and you can take
Do I
that
need an
as-
appointment? Because I'm not going to be able to make an appointment.
No,
I'm
you
just going
can- you
I
can
can
walk
just
Yeah, it would
walk
be
in.
kind of defeat the purpose,
Yeah.
wouldn't it? Unless, of course, you're calling at 6 o'clock in the evening the day before.
Well,
I'm
you
going to
know,
come see
you
you at
pretty
9
much
o'clock
know
tomorrow.
if you're going out. Some nights, you know,
No, I
tomorrow's
have
going
had
to be a
people
bad.
call me. I have had people know that, hey, we're coming into town and we know we're going to. We've had bachelor parties and people like.
That's a great idea for a bachelor party. You can pre-organize
That
it
would
so
be
you
great.
pick everybody up in the morning.
And
Birthday
everybody
parties.
passes out at the hotel room. They all wake up together. They go to the clinic.
Yes.
They get their treatment.
Has
Well,
anyone done that?
Oh yeah, we've had it a few times, and you know
That's
everybody doesn't
spectacular.
partake. You know, some they reserve a certain amount, and then some of them show and some of them don't. So birthday parties.
So, what made you think of this, other than you come from a background of alternative medicines, obviously?
Well, we've been doing the IVs in our office for quite a long time, right? And we still do, and it's probably the neatest part of our office, and it's just my whole life. That's all we've been. Whenever anybody was sick in our family, you get an IV. You need IV vitamin C. So, post Katrina, I was chatting with my brother saying, hey, we need to go really help these students. I don't know what brought it up one day. I said, we need to go park right by the boot and rehydrate these kids. They need us the most. And then it progressed, and just came about last summer. I decided I was going to do it, and it took me a little while to get open, but here we are.
Have we got a note that says your husband needs the car keys?
I know he's taking
Whose
my kids to
husband are we
soccer.
talking about?
That's
Your
my
husband. Is he here?
Doug Hamill. He's beautiful. He's outside.
He's Doug's outside.
And the keys are in my purse right there. In that black purse. He can just take the
I
whole
don't think
purse
we've
out.
ever. Thank you, Elizabeth. That was very kind of you.
Take the whole purse and he'll be able to open
That felt
the door.
very professional,
Thank
too. I saw the
you.
note
Yeah.
flash. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
terrific.
I really
That's like the
appreciate
best
it.
way it was handled.
Very nice. Yeah, we're not that organized. That's Elizabeth, who's our director of messaging. And now you've got a message as well, Jim. Okay, this is great. This is like a real
High
radio.
tech.
Well, we all have
Yes.
assistants and pros from Dover.
What's
huh?
your message?
Do you want to know if I wanted to bring the work that we're doing out in New Orleans East to bring some of the paperwork out to the houses to go see if we can get started on them? I think we're going to be okay. I think we're going to be okay. The show's actually progressing rather nicely, and we'll make it in time, I think.
Can you grab the jug of water over there? The pitcher of water. Hey, okay. So how much is it going to cost me to get rid of my hangover? Is it expensive? Not that it matters, because anyone would pay
It's a-
anything, basically.
Well, the people who come in hungover, they would pay anything, but it's $120 to $150.
That's it. $120, and I'm better.
Yeah.
And you think how much you spent on booze to feel that crappy? It's probably not that big of an investment.
no,
It's
it's-
Doug.
I don't
Doug's got it
think so.
together.
Doug's back. He's here.
Okay.
Hey, Doug. Thank you, babe.
How
Yeah.
many kids have you got?
3 girls.
3 girls.
How old
How
are
old
they?
are they?
My God.
I know. 3, phenomenal, just started school. She wants to go to shul. And I have an 8-year-old who's playing soccer. That's why he needed the ball.
Okay.
And I have an 11-year-old. And they're all doing after-school sports and fun. They're
Wow.
having a good time. I'm
And-
excited for school to be started, for them to be with their friends. And
Yeah.
we had a good summer, but it's always nice to be
And
back
Doug's
in school.
on the case. You can have him run around while you're hanging out
He's
in
helping
the
me
bar
with
having a
that,
drink.
yeah.
He's a good husband. What does Doug do? Is he a doctor as well?
He's a lawyer. He's a lawyer.
And how'd you meet?
Oh my gosh. We met, he drove some friends from American University. He had a functioning car. And a very good friend of mine was getting married. And another girlfriend who we grew up with was at American University. And so
That's in D.C.?
DC, they played soccer together. And he drove them to New Orleans. And he came to the wedding. And I met him there.
You met
And
at a
then-
wedding. That's romantic.
Yeah. And then he has a long, beautiful story about it. But he stole me away. I was engaged to someone else.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long y'all been married?
Oh gosh, 1999. We partied like it was 1999.
Wow.
So how long had you been engaged to the other person?
Little under a year. I mean, I dated him all through college. We liked each other always, and you know, Doug was dating people. I was dating still the same guy. And then when I went to med school at LSU, the two friends who he drove down were getting married here in New Orleans, and he called me in regards to the bachelor party. Hey, where am I going to take these people? You're the local. And he said he knew he had a chance with me because not once did I mention that I was engaged. So
Were you wearing an engagement ring?
I was, and
That didn't deter him at all, though.
no. Well, he was in Pittsburgh at the time. He wasn't
Okay.
living here, and so he was planning this bachelor party from afar. Called me, and then we
Okay.
kind of struck up the conversation again. He wrote me a letter in between during college, and he likes to tell the story about how I told him, "Hey, you can't write me like that. We're supposed to be friends," and I brushed him off. You know, that probably made him want me more because I said no.
And do you think that the guy that you were going to be married to, did he feel like he got a lucky escape as well? That you were kids and you were doing the wrong thing?
No. I mean, we weren't
Was he
kids.
heartbroken?
He was. I think he was upset. Yeah. He came from a small town. We weren't. I don't know that we were ever really perfectly matched. I just, I was taking.
Apparently not.
I was moving through
I
the
would hope.
motions of okay, the next step is the next step, and I was in med school, and it just was the easier thing to do.
It's
And
so weird, though. You put the brakes on it. So many people don't do that. So many people do what they think they're supposed to do and end up at a point in their life going, I did the things I'm supposed to do, and now here I am where I don't want to be. You know.
well, I'm so grateful. There are a lot of days where I'm so grateful that Doug, that it came to fruition because we both really liked each other from afar, and I just never thought it would happen living in New Orleans. And of course everybody left after Katrina, and you've had your experience of leaving, but I never thought I would leave New Orleans, and he's from Pittsburgh. So I mean, I would even joke about it with the original guy, and he'd say, well, who would you date? And I'd say Doug, and he'd laugh. He'd say, oh, yeah, go ahead. That's never going to happen.
Wow. This is why you were engaged to him.
And it did.
You mean when you were
in
engaged, you would have some sort of a
conversation,
game, like if you weren't
No,
engaged
not
to
while we were
me?
engaged, but I would say, I think I'm ready to have a break, and I think I want to date other people. And Doug's name came up, and
I see.
he laughed it off. I mean, we originally always liked each other. We just never connected, and thank God we didn't connect in college because maybe it wouldn't have worked like this. But he's a phenomenal
Best
husband,
story
father.
ever. It's the best story ever.
But he stole me away
And
at
that's
this
a
wedding.
professional playwright.
That's a great story. That's a,
Can
Yeah.
you use that into something?
Oh, it's going to show up. It'll turn up someplace. It'll turn up someplace.
Are you single or married?
I am seeing people.
Seeing people.
Yes, I see people.
In the sort of normal sense, not in the delusional sense.
No, not in the delusional sense.
You
Yeah, I
don't
see, I
think
see,
you-
dead, I, s-
You
I
dead
see
people.
dead people.
You see real people.
I don't see Bruce Willis. He's not
So
my therapist.
You're dating, is what we
I'm
used to call
dating.
that.
I'm dating. Yeah, I am dating, and I enjoy it. It's fun.
Have you been married before?
No, I have not. I came real close, but Katrina stopped that from happening. We actually had the Opera Guild was going to be where our reception was going to be. We had the church all reserved. Everything was lined up and good to go. And this little event happened today, 8 years ago, and
Changes it all.
things just kind of begun to. It's really funny because it was, we spent the first 2 weeks in Austin, Texas, and this is a kind of a strange story. 'Cause I remember the morning, this morning, 8 years ago. I was packing up the car to actually go back in. I was like, screw it, I want to get back to the city as quick as I possibly can. And my
On
friend,
the day of the hurricane?
well, no,
you were going to drive into the city?
Yeah, I was like, I'm done here. This is the day the levees broke. The day that the levees broke.
That's a Tuesday.
Yeah,
or whatever
that
was.
Tuesday. And I was packing up my car to go drive back in after everything had seemingly cleared.
Right.
And my friend, she said, the 17th Street Canal just broke. What does that mean? Because she was from Austin. She had moved there and had only lived there for 3 years. You know, like everybody else who moves down here, they live in that sliver by the river and don't really know the entire New Orleans. She said, the 17th Street Canal broke. What does that mean? I said, no. The canal out in the east broke. I said, it's fine. She said, no, the 17th Street Canal broke. What does that mean? I looked at the TV. And I went, it means we're never going back. I said, we're not going to go back for a couple of months now. That's the ball game. And being forced to live with that person in a very, not my friend from Austin, but my fiance and I, and she's a great person, and we're still really close friends. Matter of fact, I think I probably got a phone call from her today because of the anniversary of all of this. We just realized that in that kind of intense situation that we probably shouldn't be married. And it was not anything, no animus, no bad feeling. It just was like, we got a real chance to see what this would have been like, and without.
That's a gift, actually.
Oh, and that's why
having
we're
to
friends.
go through years of,
Yeah.
getting to hate each other. And what do you think that you had seen in each other that you hadn't seen before? What is the secret?
I think the fact is I couldn't wait to get back in a car no matter how bad the city was. I couldn't wait to go back down to the city. I also, I was still on salary. I was still working at Tulane, and I was on salary there. Plus, I had the FEMA money, and I realized, oh, my God, I can go anywhere and do anything. I mean, I was devastated because I grew up in Lakeview, and, 60 families that I'm directly related to, first cousin or higher, lost everything. So it was unbelievable. It's the biggest thing that ever happened to us. But suddenly I was able to kind of go around the country and meet people, and I got to tell you, I learned two things in the aftermath of Katrina. The first of which is the government of the United States was terrible. And the people of the United States were terrific. I mean, I've never been treated. I would walk into places. I went to Boston to go see a friend of mine's show, and couldn't get a hotel room. Just couldn't get one. And I said, yeah, I just drove in. He said, well, he just asked us, where are you from? I said, well, I'm from New Orleans. He said, we have a hotel room. And turned around, I got one on the spot. I mean, I just found that people were so incredibly generous. Like when we were in New York, they, there was a sale. I needed to get new clothes, and we got 40% off plus the employee discount at like half the stores we went to, and it was just the generosity of people was unbelievable in the aftermath of that.
It was. But what did you find out about each other, you and your fiance, that shortcut the whole thing? What was the quality in each other that you both said, Jesus Christ, I made a huge mistake?
Well, like I said, I wanted to go racing all over the place. And
what did she want to do?
And she wanted to go back to Ohio and go spend some time with her family and kind of hunker in. And it traumatized her. And I understand. I mean, like I said, I wasn't angry at her. It wasn't a matter of like, how dare you? But she just wanted to go back to Ohio and just kind of hunker in and kind of, recoup and recover. Where I was like, how,
This is an opportunity to go for it.
Yeah, where's the adventure? Let's go have an adventure together. And like I said, she wasn't a person opposed to adventure, but I think in that moment she was, and I think we just learned something in that time. And
I think it exposed a lot, and relationships fell apart, and relationships were strengthened. That definitely helped forge our marriage into a different.
It did. It helped.
Section. Yeah.
So
I mean, it was a tough road, but you see how people respond and react under high stress. I can't say I did a great job, but.
I don't think anybody did a great. I think there are people who rose to the occasion, but I also think that some of the people who rose to the occasion weren't very good people before that occasion came. I mean, it is what it is. And the thing is, the next event you react differently too.
I will say I was disappointed by the leadership. But you were saying the people of the government. It's funny, the facade of what politicians and people who we hired, or we elected to do a job when there really aren't true leaders out there. There are very few.
Well, we
leaders.
found that out.
Yeah.
The other thing is too is like when you go around preaching about how you can't offer yourself as evidence of your political theory. You can't say that government doesn't work and then prove it. I mean, in a lot of ways, that's what happened that day. I mean, it's like basically these are people who didn't believe in government. I remember Bill Kristol, the conservative columnist, said that he thought Clinton would have handled this better, and not because Clinton's a better person or than Bush or anything, but the implication was he understood and liked government enough to actually figure out ways to how do you get 12 trucks of water from Walmart past the Blackwater guys and into the city. when Air Canada arrives on the tarmac to help people, don't turn them away. Just figure out a way to make it work, you know. And it wasn't until the 101st arrived at the airport that any semblance of sanity was restored in the city. It was crazy.
Well, now that we've moved past that and we're 8 years away from it, and hopefully we'll never have to talk about it again. But although that day doesn't seem to ever arrive, that you can never stop talking about it.
I think it's like the World War for these people who live here.
Well, it was a traumatic experience.
When we evacuated to Doug's family's house in Florida, and I had a family, and they would call my children Katrina children and things like that, and I would take great offense.
What part of Florida is Doug from?
He's from Pittsburgh, but his parents had an empty house, and we were like, I say this all the time, but like the modern day Grapes of Wrath. I had my grandmother who was in close to her 90s, 2 dogs, a nephew. I mean, we were a mess. 2 babies.
But you were in somewhere cool in Florida on the beach.
So we went to the beach after multiple stops.
The opposite of the Dust Bowl, though.
No, we went Baton Rouge, then we went to Texas. I mean, we migrated, and then we got there, and now I lost my train of thought about what I was going to say, but it was in regards to the storm of...
And the house down in Florida, and the Dust Bowl, and Majode, and...
I don't know, I'll think of it.
So what I was going to say was, now we've moved past that. Now we're into a different New Orleans where a lot of things are different, including we're now some sort of a social experiment for the Newhouse Newspaper Corporation, where they've decided they're going to try and figure out what it's going to be like if we only publish a paper 3 days a week, and then the other 4 days a week we're going to have a paper that's available to the people on the street, but not to our subscribers. And so this is what your play is about, I assume.
What they've done, well, actually, what we're looking at is a fictional paper. It's only called The Paper, and it's set in the city of New Orleans, that finds out in the middle of this play that they're going from 7 days a week to 4 days a week. It's an ensemble piece. There's a theater company in town called the NOLA Project. And when they made the announcement about the change, A.J. Allegro, who's the artistic director, called me and said, I really want to write a play about the paper. Let's do it now. Let's figure out a way to make this happen.
So this is a commission? You got a commission?
It was a commission to write a play about the paper. And most of my plays are about New Orleans politics. And there's a lot of that in this, too, because after all, it's a newsroom, and it's full of editorialists and Metro desk reporters and City Hall reporters and beat reporters and efficiency experts. It's this kind of sprawling look of, it's 14 characters over 2 hours. It's the most characters I've ever put in a play, and it's like writing a piece of jazz, because what you have to do is make sure that everybody in the piece gets a little solo in the overall fabric of the piece. Most of their company is young. When I say young, I mean late 20s, early 30s. And so I told him, I said, you can have 9 of your company members in it, but I said, I've got to go out and get people who are older, because if I have just 14 30-year-old, it's a .com bust, and who cares? I mean, who cares about a startup down the drain? I said, so I need editors, I need retiring reporters, I need, those kind of characters that kind of populate this world. And the thing is about it is that the big argument in the play isn't about whether or not we should be slaughtering trees, every day and throwing them on people's doorsteps. The real sin of the action was, first of all, how it was handled. It was an abuse of the public trust. And more importantly, it was the laying off of all those staff members. It wasn't like they were looking to solve the problem. How do we cut back on the paper while maintaining the kind of staff that you need to kind of actually investigate a city? Because after all, what a newspaper is the narrative of a city. It's how a city breathes and lives, and it's the stories, like any good community theater with a capital C, it's the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. And what Arthur Miller once said is that a newspaper is a community in conversation with itself.
Okay, so how does this play? How is it? Are you playing out the life of the people in the paper, or are you talking about the city and what's going to happen to the city? Or
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen to us then?
Well, the thing is, I got to tell you, I'm a New Orleanian, and the people who the people who've been here for 20 years who are complaining about how it's being gentrified. Let me tell you something. I grew up here in the 70s and after like the late 70s and early 80s, when things began to really go wrong towards the late 80s, and we had police problems and corruption. And everybody seemed to be running across to the North Shore, and everybody was running out to Jefferson Parish. And, I call it preservation by neglect, is the joke I always make about New Orleans' architecture, that it only has preserved because nobody was there to kind of tear it down. Which is great, which is really terrific, actually, which means that they have to come in here and then fix stuff up. But, I mean, the city is breathing and living and loving better than it's lived in like 30 years. I mean, the idea that, there are 2 grocery stores on Carrollton Avenue. I tell people I don't mind that Panera Bread is on Carrollton Avenue. Now, if they come for Bricados and Venetias to build something else there, then we should be angry. But, I mean, the idea that more jobs and more business and the fact that I can drive down Esplanade and not hit 6 potholes, the idea that the city doesn't say dip next 40 miles, is a really terrific thing. So, I'm very hopeful about the city, and I think that there's some people, like the Newhouse organization, that panicked rather than seeing the possibilities for change there. Nothing wrong with telling people what they want before it's the moment they want it. I mean, we wouldn't have the iPod if that wasn't the case. But it just felt like the whole thing was an insult to the community and a panic button over a profit-generating engine rather than a carefully considered new model for how we're going to tell the news.
Do you have the Advocate in your play?
No, we never get to that point because
It
remember,
doesn't,
the play takes place, the first act, and it takes place over literally 2 hours. The thing I was saying earlier to somebody today is, look, you have 14 characters, which right there and then violates a big playwriting rule. And so
What's the rule?
You really shouldn't have more than 7 or 8 if you want to get produced anywhere else because of the cost.
It's too expensive
It's
to
too
hire all these
expensive and all
actors.
that.
Oh,
Unless
that's
you have
interesting.
Mark Rylance in the National Theater, cranking up the engine for you, it's very, very difficult. So you want to make a point of holding to all the other unities, which means it takes place over, a 2-hour period, no costume changes. The set is the newsroom. We never change there. It's like, don't make an illegal left turn when your license is expired. Don't break 2 laws at the same time. And so, the idea is, but we're giving people a view of the city. I mean, you have a society columnist, you have people that cover City Hall, people that cover human interest. One of the main characters is a food critic who's very, very popular and well-liked.
So this is all based on people we read.
I guess the best way to kind of describe it is the same way that Joe Klein handled Primary Colors and the way that Frank O'Hara handled The Last Hurrah, where you can recognize people in it, but at the same time, it's not them, or there are elements of 2 people kind of lurking in there.
But it's a comment, obviously, on where we are. And so who's the bad guy? Newhouse, the newspaper
Well, that's
company.
what's interesting, too, because one of the jokes we made is that we wanted an American in emotion and British in politics, because with a lot of the British playwrights of the last 20, 30 years, what you've seen is they give both sides of the story. It doesn't mean you're fair and balanced. It doesn't mean that you say that both sides have equal weight, but you allow those who you might disagree with to have the full range of their view.
Well, that's what a good drama is, though, isn't it?
Exactly.
Where you have both sides, where you can sympathize with both.
And there's an
good and bad.
There's an efficiency expert in the play, and her name is Aiden, and she kind of comes off as the villain at first, and then finally one of the characters confronts her, and he said, "You're like those people up in the state capitol who only care about the bottom line." And she pivots and she said, "It's the only line that matters." She said, "This is not a public trust; it's a business, and either you have a good business model or a bad business model. If you have a bad business model, you're going out of business." And there's something to be said for that too. I mean, the idea that their numbers were shrinking.
Well, but that's the thing about New Orleans is, you remember K&B, the drugstore?
Yes.
Yeah,
It was
ain't there no more.
It was a pretty crappy, dirty drugstore, the one near my house anyway. It wasn't all that great. As soon as they said they were going to sell it, they weren't even going...
Mackenzie's is the same thing.
Mackenzie's
Mackenzie's Donuts, another one where they basically, it's like they had like 2 good donuts and the rest you felt like you were going to get mugged.
Well,
on the
they
way
had
to the
king
counter.
cake. They had king cake.
Well, they had the brioche. They had the brioche king cake and they had the buttermilk cake donuts. But
Yeah.
you know
But
what? The Tasties picked up that recipe.
That's right,
And,
and
everything as well,
Yeah, but
you
it
know?
doesn't taste the same.
No, the buttermilk cake donuts on North Broad and Esplanade, I'm actually giving somebody a picture, I can't believe it, they're like food crack. It's right down
the guy who's got that little place called the Buttermilk Drop itself?
No, it's the
The
Tasty
Donuts
Donut
on North Broad,
and
opposite the
Esplanade.
Speedy Oil Change.
Yeah, exactly. And it's right down the block from McCarty's.
We gotta go.
We call it
Okay.
food. Ask for a buttermilk cake donut and make sure they're fresh. The 2 ladies behind
Make
the
sure
counter.
they're fresh. How would you do that?
Well, just I mean,
Who's
make
they
sure
going to tell you the truth? Yeah,
Well, I
it's
mean, you'll
fresh.
feel it.
You can
Bite
feel
into
the
it,
donut.
crack a
Yeah.
piece.
you know.
Okay, so that's also, but that's what I was saying about New
Those
Orleans.
donuts are in the play, by the way. We actually
The Tasty Donuts.
but actually, Blue Dot's one of our sponsors. So there's a whole box of donuts that gets passed around in the second act of the play, and it's basically that we called them and they said, yeah, we'd love to give you some donuts.
They're
So-
awesome. I'm psyched. They're coming closer
They're
to
going
my
to be on
house.
Chapatola Street.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What have you been to the Buttermilk Drop, which is down on? That's
I've had that too.
Those Buttermilk Drops are just as good as Mackenzie's. But that was the same thing. K&B was just this pretty second-rate drugstore. As soon as it was going to close down and become a chain,
I know.
everybody's buying the
Everybody
T-shirt
freaked
and
out, yeah.
everyone's so
Well,
sentimental.
Yeah,
And
but
I
it
understand
was
that
our
Rite
own
Aid-
thing. It was our thing. All these other things were big chains. K&B
Didn't
Well, the
was
Times
pretty cool.
Picayune is the same thing,
Thing.
though. it wasn't a very great newspaper. There were some good writers on it, I have to say, and they have done some great stuff.
But there's a big
once in a
monologue
while.
about just what you're talking about, where he actually.
Have you cast this? Could I do it?
Oh no, it's all done
Oh,
there. But he
damn, I
basically
could've done this.
tears. I mean,
Yeah.
there's an editorialist who just tears the entire paper to shreds. He said, "We have walked a fine tisk line of plague on both your houses." He said, "We have tried to basically not take a side on almost everything or present both sides of the argument, and in doing so, we've made no one happy. And when the corporate interest came for us, it made it very easy to get rid of us." Because in the end of the day, I mean, nobody really loved the Picayune, and nobody really
Until it went away. Now,
Oh yeah, now
now
it's
we're all like,
you know,
oh my God, what about the newspaper?
You know,
And now the Advocate is going to kick its ass and put it out of business, I would think.
Oh, I think they're both going to. We have a genuine. Only New Orleans. It's so funny. We zig when the rest of the country zigs. When the rest of the country's electing Republicans, we're electing Democrats, and vice versa. And of course, newspapers are shutting down, and we're the only city in America that's a newspaper war
Making
going
more,
on.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
know,
we
it's
have
just-
two newspapers.
two newspapers,
We had
yeah.
one 3-day-a-week newspaper,
and now we've
got two of them.
dailies. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, it's crazy.
That's awesome.
It's
But
crazy.
what do you think's going to happen, Mignonne? You're a New Orleanian. You've been here your
With the
whole
paper,
life.
you
Yeah, well,
mean?
who's going to win?
I don't know. I have a little animosity against Times Picayune. I see them playing catch up. Oh, whoops,
Yeah.
we made a mistake. Now we're going to put some back in the middle.
Yeah.
of
Well,
the
they
days.
won't even
Well, that's the
apologize.
problem.
Yeah.
I remember, like, New Coke said, "Yeah, we
Yeah.
screwed that one up."
Yeah.
Okay, here's the
Yeah.
old Coke. Yay! But
Well,
they're like-
maybe your play or some of these comments can help them.
Well, they broke the trust. I mean,
Right.
That's
you know,
exactly the
You-
thing is that's one of the responses to the efficiency expert. One of the Metro desk editor said, he goes, "The public trust is a terrific model as long as you don't abuse the public trust."
Yeah. Well, that's what's happened, hasn't it? I mean, we all read the newspaper every day. Hey, listen, Mignonne, I want to ask you something.
Sure.
I looked on your website, and it said two things that I thought were interesting. One is that that you're going to have a mobile
clinic.
a mobile clinic, which I thought, what a great idea. You
Yeah.
could park it right outside.
We hope
Yeah,
to park it
Pat
at the end of
O'Brien's or-
events. Yes, I think the clinic will
Super
be downtown, probably more than uptown, and we'll hope to be behind some running events
But
and
are you
some
going
sports
to
events.
do that? You're going to have like a bus or like a tour bus or something?
Yes, it's an old Oshner bus that we've
Oh, you've
taken
got the
apart.
bus already. Oh,
Mhm.
you have it.
We're working on it, so it's taking longer than I want. But
We have to.
I got to take off.
Okay,
Let's
we've
get
got to
it
wind
out.
up in 1 second. We're just going to get out here right now. So just let me finish up with Mignonne. What time? Yeah, we have to go anyway. So Mignonne, there's going to be a mobile clinic for
Yes.
sure. That's coming.
Yeah.
And it also says that you're available for private parties.
the bus will be available for, like, if you want to reserve
Glad you
this
stuck around.
bus, you could maybe hold it down so I don't take it out on location.
Really?
Sure.
So I can have a party and I can book the Hangover
Well, you
bus.
could book the bus the next day, just like we talked about with the other clinic, where you would have
Unbelievable.
Yeah, whether
I tell you, you could become the mayor of New Orleans, or at least a saint for
I
sure.
hope that we can help
Saint
a lot
Mignonne.
of people.
Yeah. I'm sure you're going to. This is a huge idea.
It's a lot of fun, I can
Just
tell
before
you.
we go, just tell me one thing. Is anyone else doing this anywhere in the country? Have you pioneered this?
No, I haven't pioneered it. There's been plenty of doctors doing it in their offices for a long time.
Yeah, but as an actual
business focused solely on hangovers, there's of course place in Vegas, and in the past year they've opened up almost every major city: Miami, Atlanta, Chicago.
And
now
what are they calling them? Did they have a cool name like yours? The Remedy Room is a great name.
you want me to give the competitors names? Okay.
Well, we're not going to go to Miami and
You're not?
you know.
Okay. There's Revive Me. There's a Hangover Heaven.
Hangover Heaven.
Uh-huh.
That's stupid.
There's
I like the Remedy Room better.
It's a Hangover Heaven sounds like a place where you know everyone's happy to have a
And
hangover.
you go to luxuriate in your hangover.
Yeah,
What's the point of
that's
that?
Crazy.
What else? The one in Chicago. There's so my clinic, ours are flipped because we're for when you're feeling upside down. We're gonna get you feeling right side up.
Ah, nice.
That's
And the
my
Remedy
logo.
Room is the R&R.
Yeah. And you
Upside
can come
down.
get your R&R. All those good
That's
things.
cool. Well, congratulations. That's a great idea. Jim, congratulations with you finishing a play. It must be quite a great feeling in itself, let alone
it's
getting it
terrific.
staged. And this is a commission, so
It's been
even
great.
better. Where is it on at?
It's
and
at the
when?
NIMS Theater on the UNO campus, and it runs from next Wednesday for the next
Give
3
us the
weeks.
date because people listen to this for years.
September the 4th through September the 21st on the UNO campus.
Okay, and we can find it. We'll have a link on. There's a link on our site.
on nolaproject.com.
I remembered what I was gonna say
Yes.
when I lost my train of thought.
Thank goodness.
Someone asked us on the playground, well, when are these people ever going to get over Katrina? And I said, why don't you ask the people from the World War if they've gotten over it yet? Not.
Isn't that funny? Because there's a line in one of the plays I wrote a couple of years ago where one of the characters says, "There're just some things you don't get over.
No. It's part of
You
our
just
fabric.
you gotta get through. You just
So-
gotta get through."
Thank goodness a hangover isn't one of them
No.
anymore.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me, you guys.
It's really
My
nice
guests
to
on
meet you.
Happy Hour today have been Dr. Mignonne Mary and Dr. Jim Fitzmaurice, the only show we've ever had 2 doctors.
Thank you, sir.
Our show is produced today by Graham DePonte. Our associate producer and technical director is Chris Kehoe. Christian Unreal is our music director. He's got a lot to answer to. Dr. Cliff Brigden is our web designer and Link to the Real World. And our theme music was written and is being played currently by Mitch Foreman. The fabulous audio quality of this show is brought to you in part by PreSonus Audio Electronics. PreSonus makes some of the best audio recording and live sound products around, including Studio One music production software, Studio Live digital mixing consoles, Era Studio monitors, and much more. You can visit PreSonus.com for more information about that. If you'd like to be on our show and you can stay upright for about an hour and have a vaguely intelligent conversation, drop us a line. Our address is on our website, where you can also check out other shows, including many more happy hours, Out to Lunch with Peter Raschuti from Commander's Palace, Mindset with psychiatrist Dr. Nick Pajic, True to the Game with the fabulous Chris True and Tammy Nelson, Vietnam, our show about the New Orleans Vietnamese community, and Midnight Menu Plus One with Margot Moss and the man who ate New Orleans, Ray Kennard. Keep up with us on Facebook, Twitter, and a bunch of other time-sucking social media. On all of it, we're called It's New Orleans. If you're listening to this show on iTunes or Stitcher or other podcatchers, thank you for subscribing to us. Maybe you can rate and review us. That helps other people find us as well. Our show is recorded live today at Casa Borrega on Aretha Castle Haley Boulevard. Casa Borrega is a bar, a live music venue, and a restaurant with awesome food. Check it out. It's down here on Aretha Castle Haley, right at Felicity. Happy Hours, a production of INO Broadcasting for itsneworleans.com. Andrew Duhon is back next week. Till then, I'm Grant Morris. Thanks for joining me. See you next time on Happy Hour.
Big news, New York City. The OnePlus 7 Pro 5G is available exclusively at Sprint. Enjoy blazing fast download speeds with incredible reliability and dependable coverage. Get it for just $20 a month. That's a savings of more than 40%. All you need is an 18-month lease and approved credit. Learn more about 5G coverage in your area at sprint.com/sprint5G. After $15 per month credit, apply within 2 bills with new line of service or eligible upgrade on qualifying plan. If you cancel early, remaining balance due, excludes tax. Offer coverage not available everywhere, subject to credit and $30 activation fee and restrictions apply.